Hey guys, so I've referenced Busting Loose from the Money Game recently, except I've been calling it Bustin' Loose from the Money Game. I don't know. I thought that was the name of the book. I'm not sure why I created that title. It's Busting Loose from the Money Game. I want to read you this little excerpt. And before I do, I've talked about this book here a few times. When I first read it, somebody in the comments recommended it to me. I read it, and I was kind of blown away by it. But it is written in such a simple format and using such digestible terms that I was a little embarrassed to have found it so appealing. Because I like to think of myself as slightly more of an intellectual than fifth grade reading level. But apparently I'm not. And I've embraced that. And so if you're somebody who is kind of dabbling in the manifestation stuff, you might really like this book, even if you also consider yourself an intellectual, because it's so digestible. And the funny thing about it is, you could read this book and say, this is woo-woo garbage. This is just some fantastical idea this guy came up with. But what this guy is talking about in this book, it's like he's snagging you into beginning to contemplate some seriously spiritual ideas with the way with what he's describing doing in this book. This is some of the deepest spiritual stuff there is. It's some of the most core and basic ideas behind stuff like A Course in Miracles. My friend Cecilia and I read this book around the same time a few years ago, and then last summer we were talking about it. And our friend ACIM Stacy was popped out of nowhere and said, you know what, I got this book and I'm reading it because you guys keep talking about it. And I was just like, hey, tell me that this book is not A Course in Miracles, with A Course in Miracles being the PhD level text of this book. This is the fifth grade ACIM book. Anyway, I want to read you this because it's incredible what happens when you do this. And I think it's really important. I think a lot of people are trying to progress forward in sort of a linear fashion, when in reality, this sort of path to progress is very much an up and down, up and down, up and down, spiky type of thing. You go out into sort of hovering outside of your known human existence for a while, and then you think you're going to stay there, but you don't. You get sucked back into the world. And even that terminology is kind of bad, sucked back in, it's a bad thing. You choose to come back and, a part of your life where you're still very firmly stuck in old thinking will have some sort of an incident, and then you get sucked back in, and then, you have an opportunity to improve and maybe come out a little bit more. You have a few months where you're not really in the world thinking about things constantly. Your mind is somewhere else, or, you have a daily practice where it's keeping you very grounded, sort of at a higher place. And this, just like this, it's just like this. That's how I've experienced it. And so just doing stuff like this, just having an experience where even for a few minutes you see the truth, that's really important, because you don't forget the truth. Sometimes you don't think of it for a while, but once, when you know the truth, you know the truth. And amazingly, this book that is kind of dorky, by the way, this is Busting Loose from the Money Game by Robert Scheinfeld, and I certainly don't mean any disrespect by calling it dorky. That's a fond term. It's a little dorky, which people need, I think, in order to connect to, because people are huge dorks. So I want to read you this little process that he does. And I also want to say before I start that if you get anything out of this, if you start doing this and it's life-changing, or you even get an insight, anything, if you get anything of value, of spiritual value from this, go to Amazon and buy the book. Like, buy it from Amazon so the author gets paid. You know, keep this flow going. Give the value for getting the value. Demonstrate to yourself and the higher you that is observing you. Demonstrate that you have confidence that you can be a part of this process of, I get value, I give value. Demonstrate that you have something to give. Have a little faith. If you can't afford it, don't do that. But make a mental note. And when you can, you know, try to give something back for all of these things that you're getting. I don't need anything given to me, by the way. Don't give me anything. Just send me a positive vibe. That'll do. Okay, ready. This is from, I'll figure out what chapter this is. It's on page 113 of the book, The Mini Process. As you move into phase 2 of the human game, that's the part where you are breaking out of, I'm going to manifest this, I'm going to manifest that, I'm going to get happiness in the external world. As you move into phase 2 of the human game, phase 1 is what I just described, you'll notice 2 scenarios unfolding relating to money and finances and other creations unrelated to money. 1, experiences that cause you to feel discomfort. 2, experiences that don't cause you to feel discomfort, but point the way to limiting eggs in the field. And when he says eggs in the field, that just basically he's talking about ideas that you're feeding energy to in the energy field. So he refers to them as eggs and sucking energy out of the eggs, which again is like this 5th grade thing that is really appealing. Like, you can easily imagine an egg and you can easily imagine sucking energy out of an egg. So experiences that cause you to feel discomfort and experiences that don't cause you to feel discomfort, but at the same time, you become aware that there is something out there that you're, you know, believing that isn't necessarily making you feel uncomfortable, but that is limiting you. When you feel discomfort, you apply the process that's coming up. When you don't feel discomfort, but you see limitation at work, you apply the mini process. To distinguish between the two, if you look at your checking account statement and feel uncomfortable because the balance seems so low, you apply the process to it. However, if you see your checking account statement, look at the balance, and you don't feel uncomfortable because it seems big or enough, or however you label it, you apply the mini process. Why? Because your checking account isn't real. The deposit and withdrawal numbers on the statement aren't real, and the balance isn't real, so you know you're looking at a limited creation, an illusion. You want to take the opportunity to reclaim your power from it and reaffirm what's true to support you in busting loose from the money game. One of my beefs with this book is random capitalization throughout the whole thing. True is capitalized there. Unnecessary. Unnecessary, Robert Scheinfeld. The mini process is the same as the process, except you don't dive into the discomfort as step 1 because there isn't any discomfort there. So this is literally, I'm not going to go back and read the process, because this is the same. It's just, if you are feeling serious discomfort about something, the author recommends like going into it and feeling it as badly as you can, like make it as big as you possibly can before doing this process. Okay, so here's the process. You simply follow the remaining steps. 1, I am blank creating this. So if you think of yourself as God, or you think of yourself as your higher self, or you sort of just have rested on feeling like the universe is creating something, and you don't see that as being something outside of you that only gives you things if it wants to. If you just think of it as the universe, that's fine. So I am God creating this. For me, I just say I am creating this. I don't feel the need to fill in the blank with some other greater deity. Step 1, I am creating this. Step 2, it's not real. Really feel the meaning of the words. It's not real. 3, it's completely made up. Really feel the meaning of the words. 4, it's a creation of my consciousness. Really feel the meaning of the words. I created this. It's a creation of my consciousness. It's not real. You can feel this as you're doing it. That's the idea. 5, I reclaim my power from this creation now. 6, as I reclaim the power, I feel it coming back to me. And this is, for me, something I actually feel. I imagine this blob of whatever it is, And I imagine a connection between me and the blob, and it's just being sucked out back into my body. And for me, this is like an instant thing I can feel, where I just feel like energy, just the visual of that causes me to feel like something is actually happening, like I'm being re-energized. 7, I feel it surging through me. Feel it really surging. As I feel it, 8, as I feel the surge, I feel myself expanding more and more and expressing more and more of who I really am in my human experience. I am God. I am the creator. I am the universe. I am actually non-physical, having a physical experience. That might be a bit much for you, but put whatever you want in there, whatever you feel like you are in this whole manifesting thing. What is it? Are you God? 9, fully appreciate how amazing you had to be to create this and convince yourself it was real. How amazing the creation was and how beautifully it served you in phase 1, which is the phase that most people are in, where they're still chasing things in the world, still looking to the external for their emotional reactions, all of that. Still trying to control the world, still playing the human game, the game that you can't win. That is the process. If you're short of time or are looking at numerous limited creations simultaneously, you can abbreviate this from time to time by only doing steps 1 through 5. Basically, you stop at the point where you just reclaim your power, and you have that visual. For me, you have that visual where you're sucking all of the energy out of it. It's shriveling up, losing all of its power. You've seen it for the farce that it is. It's like the Wizard of Oz, this big thing. It turns out there's just this little thing in there. You're deflating this whole thing down to nothing and reclaiming all of this energy that your thought power was giving to this thing out there. So that's where you stop if you're doing this on the fly. It was really interesting. I'm sure I said this on the last video where I talked about this, but I was doing this so much when I first read this book because it was so instantly liberating. I've never been the same since. I was doing it so much though that I had a kind of a nightmare one night, and in the nightmare, without becoming lucid that I was dreaming, in the nightmare, I performed this process, sucked all of the juice out of this fake thing that was happening in the nightmare, and the dream shifted and turned into something else. And when I woke up, I was like, holy shit, this is like when I used to play 70 games of literati, and then I would fall asleep with random words rearranging themselves. Like I've been doing this all the time. But that is the process for busting loose from the money game. And to relate it to A Course in Miracles, everything is talking about the same thing. Everything. There's only one truth. It's just a million different perspectives on, how to view it. And it's interesting because things like this busting loose from the money game, I feel like it would have been really easy for that guy to say, this is too elementary. This is too, then again, that's just my judgment. But isn't it so great that all these people are in touch with this truth and are starting to talk about it from their own perspective, so that other people that are, it's appropriate for other people, and these other people find it, instead of everybody having to go try to, wade their way through some huge text like A Course in Miracles, or try to decipher the meaning of the Bible with the help of Neville Goddard or something. There's all these different ways to get the core concept, which is that this is an illusion, and what you're feeding your energy into is what matters, and you can just stop it. I used the A Course in Miracles now.com oracle before making this video because I was thinking I want to read the busting loose process again. I'm going to start getting in the habit of doing that again. I wanted to read it, but I like to sometimes just see what the oracle will say. And it was pertinent to me. So this is lesson 119 from A Course in Miracles workbook. It's a review of 2 other lessons. So you're getting a twofer here. Truth will correct all errors in my mind. This is something that you tell yourself. This lesson is to remind yourself of this every hour. Truth will correct all errors in my mind. I am mistaken when I think I can be hurt in any way. I am God's son whose self rests safely in the mind of God. And then the second lesson is to give and receive are one in truth. I will forgive all things today, that I may learn how to accept the truth in me and come to recognize my sinlessness. The concept of forgiveness in A Course in Miracles, in my opinion, I haven't listened to a lot of other people talk about A Course in Miracles. The idea of forgiveness is not, you wronged me and I'm going to be the bigger person and say, hey, it's okay. We can, it's all good. No hard feelings, even though you are lower than me in this situation. Forgiveness is about recognizing that this is entirely an illusion. It's not reality. It's not real. What's real is behind the illusion, and what's real is good. What's real is truth. And the only thing that's true is love in its many forms. If you don't like that word, any other good thing is a form of love. So the only thing that's true is that, and everything else is an illusion. And A Course in Miracles aims to get you through the illusion, which is exactly what this process of removing the reality of something outside of yourself with bust and loose, that's causing you discomfort. It's the exact same concept. And when I read To Give and Receive Are One in Truth, I decided to make the video about bust and loose because I was already thinking I need to make sure to tell people to buy a copy of this guy's book if they get value from this, because it's this giving and receiving thing. It is the same. It's like two sides of the same coin. And that's why when you start to be more faithful about giving, it's you can't possibly not receive, because you're in that vibration. You're in that frequency. And so it's, I think, really important to give value for getting value, and give value even if you haven't gotten value yet, with the understanding that it's impossible for you not to receive. And I do think that it is possible to delay receiving. I think it is impossible to receive and not perceive that you have. So, because I made a video about this recently, and somebody left a comment I give all the time and I never receive anything, and I don't know that person, and so I really can't speak to their situation. But I know that your perception blinds you to a lot of things, and wrong perception is pretty much the core problem with everybody for everything. When you correct that perception, truth will correct all errors in my mind. When you correct all of those misperceptions, everything looks different. Solutions to problems are right there. Problems you thought you had disappear because you realize they're not a problem. It was a way you were looking at something that made you think it was a problem. Anyway, I'm just going to leave this here because I think that's enough. Was that enough? Was that enough to think about for right now? It's enough for me. I'm on my first technical, really day off where I don't have to do anything. I haven't taken a day off where I don't have something I kind of have to do since Matt and I went to Iowa to visit his family in September. And that really wasn't a vacation because we were there too. But it was still, I didn't have to do anything, and it was definitely awesome. But this is the first real day off I've had in a while. And so I took last night off also, meaning I went home from work at 2, and I just kind of hung out all night with my cats. And a couple things happened, whatever. This isn't necessary to listen to. There's nothing too juicy in here, just some thanks and stuff. I ended up laying there all night, and my Tiggy cat, finally came and jumped on me and laid down with me. She hasn't done that in months, and I suspected it was because I wasn't home enough. It seems like she'll come and jump and sit on you once you've been sitting somewhere for a long time. And she came and jumped on me. I have not been so happy in months. I was really missing. She'll come and just smash right up against your face. And just starts purring really loud, and it's just a really nice thing, and I really missed it. And so that happened last night. Yay, finally. And then also, I want to thank the commenter that told me to get the continuous glucose monitoring system. I didn't think it was going to be here for like 2 weeks, and then it magically showed up. They said 5 to 7 business days to ship, and then I got home yesterday and it was there. So you know that thing was jammed into my arm like 5 minutes later. And there was a lot of illuminating information that has come from the last 12 hours, 16 hours. Wow. So I was expecting to have some info from that. That would probably indicate I needed to do something, but I was really surprised by what it was and how it tied into other things that I have been like sort of toiling, which you're not supposed to do, but I've been kind of toiling to get the answers to these things. And obviously it was things I already suspected. I said I felt this big pull to eating non-processed foods and just whole foods and stuff like that, good stuff. This big draw and this kind of like being grossed out by processed foods a month ago. Well, so I had a half a pint of Haagen-Dazs vanilla ice cream and a cupcake last night for science. I wanted to see what the glucose monitor was going to do in response to that, because I figured that's about the biggest insulin spike I can imagine getting. I used to monitor my blood glucose a long time ago just by doing the finger sticks. But this thing is 24/7, and what happened, if I had just taken some finger stick readings, I would never have seen what was actually happening. The first thing was, there was basically no response. My blood sugar never went above like 105, which is pretty low. And so at first I was thinking, can this possibly be, is this like the residual from how athletic I was for like 2018 to 2022? Like, am I just like getting a free pass here from my sort of all over the place, like eating habits and having gained weight and stuff like that? And I just thought, I weighed a lot more than this the last time I was doing blood sugar sticks, and my blood sugar was going up to like 210 after eating ice cream, and it's not doing anything now. That can't be good. And so I was watching it, and it was just like spiking. It just kept spiking. This was at like 7 p.m. By the time I went to bed at 11, it had just been up and down a whole bunch of times and dipping into below healthy range. And so that was supposedly normal. And I don't know, I went to sleep, and then when I checked it this morning, I saw there's long periods while I'm sleeping where my blood sugar goes super low to like 55. And this totally explains a bunch of sleep issues that I have seen from the Fitbit over the last couple of years. There have been times where my sleep's been good, but a lot of the time, most of the time, my resting heart rate at night is higher than my resting heart rate during the day, which it's not supposed to be. And so this explains it. And the spikes in heart rate match up exactly with these dips in blood sugar. Your body gives you a shot of adrenaline to raise your blood sugar, whatever mechanism does that. But the adrenaline spikes your heart rate. That affects your sleep. So this is really interesting that it's all tied together. And needless to say, is one thing when you're like, I really need to do stuff to improve my health. I know eating sugar is bad, or I know eating this garbage is bad. It's another thing when you can actually see it happening and correlate it to your sleep, which then is, impacting you in a way that you feel and are experiencing during the day. It's a totally different story. I want nothing to do with sugar after seeing this. And so I'm going to have a couple Taco Bell tacos for lunch for science, see how that goes. I'm not going to be eating Taco Bell regularly, but for science, I'm going to eat some Taco Bell tacos and see if they are just as bad as everything else. They're mostly meat, so we'll see. I need something that I can get on the fly if I need to. And I already bought a bunch of stuff to make guacamole last night, so I'm going to have that tonight and see what that does. But thank you so much to that commenter. I think your name was Brooke Barnett. Is that correct? Burnett? Hopefully I'm thinking of the right person, but thanks for suggesting that because I didn't know it existed. And I'm going to be monitoring this And I will bust loose as I'm doing it, but I'm still going to keep an eye on it. And I know for a fact that everything, I know for a fact, like, do you hear me? I know everything will fall into place with this, and that this problem is done. It's done. It's solved. It takes practice to get to the point where you can do this, but rather than, like, you know, there's a whole other way I could be responding to this, and if I were inclined to do so, I would. I'm just not, because this is such a practice. I could be freaking out and making doctor's appointments right now, but it's so obvious that the problem is resolving itself right in front of me. Everything I need to know is showing up. But that's not to say you should go to the doctor. I will go to the doctor and get a mammogram to appease my mom. Another thing, and this is it. This is the last thing I'm going to say. In my last couple videos where I was talking about all the weirdness that's been happening lately, I brought up all this stuff about breast cancer. I left out this big detail, this thing that I just thought of it a bunch of times, but just forgot to mention when I was talking about it. My mom and her siblings are not the crack potty type. They're certainly open to all these ideas, but we're not talking about like crystals and seances or anything. Like, these are typical Midwestern people. They are, at least my mom and her sister, are convinced that I am their mother reincarnated. And I've heard this my whole life, just as like a sort of a joke. Oh, you're just like June. You're just like June. That's just like, you know, just here and there, I make a comment. I have some lifestyle thing I'm choosing. You're her reincarnated. Recently, this has ramped up. I've heard this a bunch of times. And June died of breast cancer when she was 41. So I think this is driving, and my mom got breast cancer when she was 65. So I think this has been driving some comments and some sort of frantic energy coming my way, disguised as even-keeled concern from my mom. I mean, I basically had to say, get off my tits, Mom, last year, because she kept talking about, you know, going and getting a mammogram. And I was just like, I will do it when I'm ready, and that will be soon. But I just haven't like gotten around to it. But I think that's another thing that's been coming up. And then when I started seeing all this breast cancer stuff in the back of my mind, I thought, well, if I'm June reincarnated, I hope I don't have a breast cancer theme running through all of my lifetimes. But when I realized that, I was just like, oh, okay. Mom is just the source of every physical, mental thing I have, everything having to do with me physically. And this is just coming from her. That's her stuff. That's Mom's stuff. I don't need to absorb that and carry it around. That's her shit. And she is also the source of many, many of the physical things I talked about. Shame here, about how I'm feeling. That comes from her 100%. So, you know, all these things illuminate themselves, and if you're aware, then you can see them and use them. If you're not, maybe you'll miss it. I don't know. But anyway, I thought I would just mention that. I thought that was an interesting detail that I left out. So that's it. I think I'm going to have time to get to Neville Goddard today. I've been dying to do that. And my multi-talented business partner, Gene, is also a very talented music producer, audio producer. And he said he would master it for me so it doesn't sound like shit, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, have a great day.